What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Vet Rise podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. I know that time is the most valuable thing that we have, which is why I want to make sure we use time wisely today. So for everybody listening, we're actually doing a live for the very first time with the Savage Squad, which is my coaching program inside of the Vet Rise Academy. So if you guys are on the live, you'll be able to ask questions, keep them smart, and ask whatever you want. And then we'll answer them at the end if we have time. Okay, so if you're not listening live, this is Matthew Sloper. I'm gonna let him introduce himself because I already butchered his name. And actually, no, I want to introduce him a little bit. So this freaking guy, I met him, and I'm like, this freaking roided up, tatted up, crazy freaking English guy is pretty damn fucking cool. And he took a liking to me. We were at an event, and I completely just bonded with this guy. Like it was a very much one of those bonds that I have with someone that I served with in the military. And you don't find that out here in the real world a lot, which is what a lot of us talk about since this is a Vet Rise podcast. We talk about veteran stuff. So just remember, like, you can find other connections out there in the real world. And here's one of my connections. Matt, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into some questions.
What is going on, man? First and foremost, I just want to say a massive thank you to having me on here, and welcome to everybody who's in the Savage Squad. I absolutely appreciate that so much. And you said it needs no introduction, but the reality is, my man, like, you're completely right. You were sat at the end of that bar when I first met you in Canada, in Kelowna, at that first event that we went to, and we just sparked up a conversation out of nowhere. And that conversation just went from strength to strength. And here we are a couple of years down the line. And it's been so good connecting and catching up again at the last live event and chatting away every single day. So before we get into anything today, I just want to say that I absolutely love every single thing that I see you doing. And I think that the people that you support and that you work with and the community that you've built, we need so much more of that in this world, because mental health in general, I'm not just going to say for men here, but also for women, is one really big thing that we need to get better at in the world, period. And the individuals that you work with, those that have served, have so many things that most people can't even relate to. So I'm so happy that you do what you do and you help the people that you help, and you're here for them. And I know that they appreciate it. And I just want to say, like, it's incredible to watch. So congratulations on that front.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate that so much, brother. It means a lot to me. I take it very personally because the reason why I gave the title that you see on the podcast today, Quit the BS, is because I think that we BS ourselves a lot. And when I say that, I don't mean just in day to day. I mean that what we tell ourselves, what we tell our friends, what we tell our family, and honestly, meeting someone that is as real as Matt, someone that will tell you when your bullshit is bullshit, when you can actually do a lot more than you think you're doing. It's one of the most beautiful things you can do. And honestly, the reason why I feel so close to him is because he has kept it rolling from the start. We both have had our ups and downs. And, I feel comfortable sharing with him because he was willing to open up and be vulnerable with me about some of the stuff that he's been going through. But again, vulnerability doesn't equate weakness or softness. It just equates you understanding that as human beings, we have these different types of ways of beings, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I want to start by asking you, Matt, what do you feel has been the number one thing in your life that has helped you speak your truth so eloquently and so authentically, my man?
That's a really good question. And it comes from a good amount of time ago. For anybody I know that there's a couple of individuals within your team. Anybody who knows me or who's been watching along or knows my story will know that I've come through quite a bad case of drug addiction, alcohol abuse, substance abuse. And 6 years ago, I went sober. And for a long period of my life, I was living a life that, quite frankly, wasn't mine. It really wasn't. It wasn't the person who I was supposed to be. And I was really much trying to put a plaster over like a severed limb to try and fix a wound, right? Fast forward to 6 years ago when actually I went sober and I had my kind of wake up call moment. And I realized that so many of the little things in life, I was allowing them to bother me unnecessarily. And I think that every time we take something on board, somebody says something or something happens in our day-to-day life, we have choices and we have reactions. And how we react to something is a choice in itself. And most of the time, the things that are filtering into our day-to-day life, into our psyche, whether it's a good emotion, bad emotion, stress, anger, etc., we choose to react in a way which bothers us and pisses us off for the rest of that day. And we let that one interaction with a person or a thing dictate what the rest of our day is going to look like. And this for me was a fucking problem. So for me, the whole no bullshit mentality and no bullshit approach is that people do need to be called out on their stuff from time to time. That's true. But for every single person who's like, you know it, like you'll know somebody who one small thing goes wrong in their world and then they just complain and they bitch and they moan about the rest of the day. It's like, come on, man. Like you could be doing so much more with the other 23 hours in your day, but you're going to let that one thing, that one interaction, that one bad email at work, that one person that cut you off at the lights or pulled out on you in the car, you're going to let that one interaction fuck the rest of your day. Like, I don't fucking get it. I don't get it. So that was a big change for me.
It's such a small part of the day.
Absolutely. And there was a big issue with this for me is that I found that every time something like that was happening in my world, I was then taking that on board and then I was projecting that onto other people around me. And you see, that's a problem because the same way that we promote like positive energy and like having good vibes and all of that goes from one person to the next. And for all of your team who are working on their health and well-being at the moment, the actions that they are taking, they might not even realize it's happening, but by them looking after their health, that's having a knock-on effect and inspiring other people in their circles that, oh my God, like if this person's doing it, I can do it. But the same can be said for bad energy, like doing bad shit, letting things affect us. If we're acting stressed, we're going to be the stressful person in the room. We're going to bring other people down. We're going to make other people stressed out as well. Like it has a knock-on effect. I just choose not to let little shit affect me because I've got better and bigger things to be doing in my day. That's really what that looks like.
I love that, man. That's a lot of great information. I love your perspective on the fact that we can't let other people be the reason why we bring our whole day down. Like we start our day and we're at zero, right? We're at a neutral point, and we either decide, do we do something positive or something negative? And driving down the road, I mean, it happens to me. You know, somebody cuts you off. Like, what do you do? Do you decide to spend energy getting angry about it, getting pissed off, honking your horn, flipping them off, or do you just let it go? Because honestly, I think that letting it go actually gives you a little more plus. It gives you a little more power because you didn't let the one thing that was trying to bring you down. Therefore, I think it actually adds to the value of your day because you were able to let it go and it didn't bother you and it didn't destroy your day the way it does for a lot of people.
100%. Do you know one thing? I'm going to share this with you. One thing that really used to just piss me off on a day-to-day basis, and this is just me, right? And some of the guys that are listening to this might resonate with. I used to work on a gym floor. Like I used to be a personal trainer, work with individuals on a one-to-one basis. And as a byproduct of that, now if I go into a gym, if I see that people haven't put their weights away, they've left it on a machine, it will fuck me off. And that was happening on a daily basis until I was like, oh, you know what? Why is something so petty actually bothering me so much? And that's going to sound crazy to a lot of your guys. However, it was. And it was happening every single day because I was in the gym every single day. And I was just like, right, I got two choices here. I can either let this really petty thing piss me off for my session and throw me off track, or I can unwreck that weight. I can count it as an extra rep for myself, and I can know that I'll just be stronger than that individual and get on with my freaking day.
I don't think it's silly at all. I think that a lot of people that listen to this podcast will probably be like, yep. Because in the military and I mean, even in civilian life, we're taught that everything has to be a certain way, and we nitpick the small things because at war, small things will get you killed, right? So you have to make sure that you have your ammunition. You have to make sure that you bring water with you. You have to make sure that everything is squared away. You have to make sure your weapon works, make sure it's not dirty. And a lot of that translates into something that you just mentioned, because for me, dude, I had an experience where there was this girl that was falling asleep in class. And I've talked about this before, but she was falling asleep in class, Matt. And I, for some reason, felt like it was my responsibility to wake her up. And I completely stopped paying attention to the professor. I zoned out. I got into my military mindset. And at this point, I'm about 1 year out of the military. And I freaking go up to her and I told her, you need to wake up or you need to stand up in class. And she starts crying, dude. Now, I won't get into whether I was right or wrong. My point is that, like, the little things like that, you have to realize, like, they're not worth spending the energy that you're spending on it. Like, I should have focused on the class. You know, pick up the weights is not a big deal. And for everybody listening, like, as veterans, we think that everything has to be a certain way, but our standards can be our standards, but it doesn't mean we have to judge and get angry and not enjoy our day. Like, I know for me, like, I could definitely ruin my day with a bad moment, and I allow myself to, like, bring myself down, and I forget about all the good shit that I've been thinking about or doing.
It will
Yeah.
happen. It will happen. It will get into you. But the whole bullshit or no bullshit approach for me was that you will have seen it. Like every single person who's listening to this right now, if you're watching on the live or if you're listening onto on Spotify or on the Apple Podcast app, if you're listening to this, you've got the technology in your hand to be able to go onto the internet and fill your head with bullshit. We all do it. We doom scroll and we don't realize we're taking it in. But the internet is so full of misinformation, unfortunately, that especially in the fitness world, and whereas my stance in health and fitness is slightly different to what you do, and we work with individuals who are returning back into training after having taken some time off, usually after having put their career first, and they want a sustainable approach to get back to a body that they feel confident in. They, as I'm sure many of your clients and your family that you've created over there have done, is they will scroll and they'll take on so much of this misinformation, which is plaguing our internet, plaguing our social media. And because of all of this information they take on board, they never start. They literally never start because they're so overloaded with, is this the right thing for me? Is that the right thing for me? This article contradicts this article about whether or not I should eat carbs. Like, it's fucking unbelievable. The whole bullshit or no bullshit approach came from breaking through the fucking noise of these fitness influencers. And I use quotation marks here because it does genuinely piss me off. I actually had somebody call me an influencer the other day. I was like, absolutely fucking not. Absolutely not. I don't stand for it. Breaking through the noise of what these people are putting out for just fun content and being like, hey guys, if we are in this profession and we are genuinely out here trying to help people, help change people's lives, then we have a responsibility not to make crappy videos that are just trying to get likes and actually provide people with some value. So that's where I came in. I was like, I'm sick of seeing this shit. I'm going to strip away from it.
I freaking love your videos, man. Like I feel like, so for everybody watching and listening, by the way, we had issues with the live, so unfortunately the Savage Squad is going to have to watch once we post this, but not a big deal. The first time I met you, I remember how comfortable you were recording in the gym. And I don't know if you could tell or not, but I was the most uncomfortable I had been in a very long time. I was a fish out of water, man. Like, I had been surrounded by veterans for most of my life. I had been surrounded by service members. I had been surrounded by cops. And all of a sudden, I was surrounded by a bunch of like high performance, like sexy, freaking like powerful, like easily. I'm trying to put the words together. It was very easy for me to feel like a very, very small statured person compared to all you guys. Well, you're tall, number one, but like I was very, very much just in awe, but also like, what the hell am I doing here? Because I could see how comfortable you were with the microphone. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I don't know if I could ever do that. And like that limiting thought right there stood with me for a long time. And then I actually, I think it was listening to your podcast. I don't know what episode it was, but you said something about the fact that like whatever you say to yourself, it's true. So if you keep telling yourself that you can't do it, it's never going to happen, right? So like I stopped talking to myself like that. I started studying the way that people talk. Today I'm doing terrible, as you can tell. I'm all over the place. But I started studying the way people talk. I started studying how language can affect people's emotions, and it's a tool. It's a powerful tool. And when you use it the right way for the right reasons, not the manipulation, but the fact that you're trying to like get people enthused, get people to flip a switch in their mind, get people to see things differently, get people to understand that like they actually can do it. They can do it. It's not about talking down to them. It's about like waking them up. And when you did that, when I saw that the power of your voice and what you put out there and the stuff that you do, man, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And I just want to tell you, man, it's been inspiring. And I've been trying to do the same. And you know, eventually I'll get to a higher level. But I don't feel like that fish out of water anymore. I feel very much surrounded by my people. I feel very much like I can compete with the best of you guys. And I love that because I feel like I am there because you guys helped me get there, right? There wasn't competition. It was collaboration. And that's important. And the reason I know you got a lot to say right now too, brother. Go ahead, jump in.
Oh, I think that you're completely right on that front. And this works in on so many different levels, because when we first met, you were a fish out of water, to use your phrase, but you got to remember that a year prior to that, I was you. And the same way that you probably have clients within your program right now, part of the Savage Squad that are new into that family, and they're sat there on day one, they're fresh out of water or fresh into making this commitment to have a better life for themselves. They're probably looking around the room at like, hey, look at all of these people who are absolutely smashing it. I don't know if I've got that in me yet. And the truth is, on day one, none of us have that stuff locked down. That's why it's day one for us. Because on that same trip where you saw me and you were like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, I was also staying with another coach who was 2 years more experienced than me. And I felt like I knew fucking nothing. There's another guy called Andres. You see, we all start at some point, which is step number one. And then we just get better through putting the reps in. And I think this is the bit that worries people the most, right? They never get started because they're worried about being new or making a fool of themselves. Or in your instance, you're like, who are these guys so confident on camera? The first time I was on camera trying to record myself saying anything, dude, I wish I could find those old videos just to share with people because I looked like an idiot.
I found one of my old videos when I started. And I recorded it like 8 or 9 or 10 times. I don't know, but it was terrible. And it's like, man, like I look back and even my enunciation, the way that I look at the camera, like all of it changed. And honestly, all it takes is reps. Like with the reps, with everything in life, like delayed gratification, understanding that muscle fatigue applies everywhere in life. If the longer you do it, your muscle will fatigue, but it's also going to repair. So if you do it, maybe you mess up the first video or two, but eventually like you're going to get that one taint that you're like, damn, this one's all right. And then you put it out, people celebrate it, people like it, you feel better about it. Then you start doing better and better and better. And by the way, I did go live on my phone, so people will be able to ask me questions that they want to ask you from the group, but they won't be able to see the live. So I'm going to just give it to them once the video is done. So if they do have questions, they can go ahead and ask. Hey guys, if you're watching the live right now on my phone, we had some technical difficulties and we couldn't do the stream from Riverside for some reason. We did do a troubleshoot earlier, but you know what? We're going to freaking keep rocking and rolling with it and we'll figure it out. So if you have questions, post them in the Facebook Live where you guys are at right now, and I'll ask Matt, and then you can hear him once the episode is released. Or maybe you guys will get a sneak peek. But coming back to Matt. So listen, man, I want to ask you a question. So the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because you're a huge influence in kind of the reason why I wanted to start a podcast, right? And one of the things I love about you, my man, is that you don't freaking hesitate. I love that. It did the little hearts. You don't hesitate. And I want you to tell us, to give us a little bit of insight to what your mentality is on planning and taking execution and hesitating. Because like you executed, you have an idea, you freaking move on it fast. A lot of people don't have that mentality. Now, think of someone that tells themselves, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I've never been that way. What type of advice do you think could snap them out of that mentality of learning to start executing instead of planning consistently, and then they start failing because something goes small in the plan? So let's hear what your thoughts are on that, my man.
It's a really interesting point. And the first thing that we all need to consider is that not everybody is going to take action on a decision the same way. And it's funny that you asked that question because I've just got back from having a meeting with our nutritionist. We went out, had a nice little drink in a pub because she's local and it's sunny here in London for once. We got some good weather and we sat down and we're having a conversation and she turned around to me. Her name's Laura and she turned around and said, I was really overwhelmed with some of the messages you were sending me this week. I was like, oh my God, what happened? Is everything okay? And what I'd asked is I'd sent her a load of ideas for some cool content that we could make together. But because she processes things in a different way to me, she thought that what I had said needed to be done yesterday. You see, the way that my brain works is a little bit twisted. I'm going to be fucking straight with you. Like that ADHD is a real thing. So when I come up with an idea, it's like bang, bang, bang. Like it just happens and it just gets done. Or sometimes it doesn't get done. Depends if I'm really interested in it. You know how that works?
Yeah,
but for me,
exactly.
Those ideas fire up. And I just had this great idea that I wanted to do with her and I just sent it to her. But not everybody's built the same way, right? Some people need to take an idea and they need to process it and they need to come at it with a different approach. Some people are more analytical. And it really depends on what our background is like, maybe a past career that we've worked in or kind of the influences within our life. When we take a problem on board, Some people sit and they need to break down and they need to figure out every possible scenario and solution to it. Now, what the issue is from both of those kinds of individuals, from myself, is if I'm firing out questions or firing out ideas left, right, and center and decisions that I want to take action on, it can be very difficult for me to prioritize which of those needs to be done in which order. And I think that this is quite normal. And in the end, it can be possible to end up with a load of half-baked ideas. But my approach is that I just get these things out and I get them done. And at some point, they're all going to come together. On the flip side to that, if you're the kind of person who sits there and you overanalyze, and I don't want to say overanalyze because I think that there is a place for that at the same time, there comes a point where you're sat down with every possible logical explanation outcome of what happens if you do A or if you do B. But unless you do something, nothing fucking changes. So there is understanding that people think in different ways and they operate in different ways is very important. But if you deliver and you don't hesitate every single time, be prepared that sometimes you're not going to get it right because you didn't think things through enough. On the flip side, if you're the person who analyzes things all of the time and you're sat there in the background and you never take action, nothing will change. So understand firstly which kind of person you are and then figure out what you need to change as a byproduct of that. Makes sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, man. I love that. I also have ADHD. And all I kept thinking about was the whole relating back to you of like, oh, well, he told me a story and I want to relate it back to him. So I had very much a similar thing happen to me where I wasn't leading my team the right way. And I was overwhelming them because I would get an idea and I would send it to them. We have a system now. I put it on a list. They can review it at their time, and there's no sort of deadline unless there's a deadline, but it'll be set differently than right now. Like we don't have the right now, and it's a good strategy, honestly. So yeah, man, honestly, I agree with your points about execution, and you do have to have some sort of analytical skills. You have to be able to plan stuff, absolutely. But I also just think that there's so many people that go to the grave with all these planned ideas and all these super amazing inventions that they wanted to put together, or this company they wanted to start. And honestly, like there's no more of an ambitious place than the graveyard, right? Because everybody's ambitious, but nobody follows through with stuff. And like, honestly, if I had to put into words the message that I want anyone to listen to this, it's execute. Like you'll never know if you don't start. And honestly, like you're going to fail at first, but it's not failure if you stand back up. That first event that I went to, I felt like I'm going to fail at this. By the time I left, I knew that I was going to be more than all right. I mean, I'm doing fairly well. We're freaking the #1 veteran coaching program. God damn it. But that moment, yeah, I know. But at that moment, it wasn't clear to me. So I could have made a decision and come home and told myself, well, I didn't have enough clarity on it. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not going to move forward, or I just execute. And that's what I did. I'm like, just executing. I promise you, things will fall into place where they need to. And the problems that will arise won't feel as big of a problem as they actually are, because you're moving at such a fast fucking speed that nothing can stop you because you are executing.
I love that. I freaking love that, man. I think that when you're going in on something and you are just taking some form of action, whatever it is, you might initially have an idea of what it is that you want to do. You might have this business idea. You might have this crazy cool new fitness goal. You might have this plan, whatever it might be. And just because you go headstrong into it, along the way of, I'm going to say failing, but I don't think that we fail as long as we learn and then we make adaptation. I think that there's a big difference there, because people are, oh, well, what if I fail? Like, what if you don't fucking fail, you idiot? Like, what if you actually learn something incredible on that journey? What tends to happen is that we have this initial idea and we start doing it. Something doesn't go right. We then shift our perspective. And what we end up doing in the end is so much better than our initial first idea.
Yeah.
Like the best ideas come from trial and error and then trying again. And we don't think of that on day one.
Yeah. Honestly, man, like too many people just, I think people want validation on their ideas before they move forward with it. So therefore they want to share it with someone, but they're scared to share it. And like, you got to choose: do you share it or do you not share it, or do you just decide that you're going to figure it out on your own? Because sometimes sharing it, I think, is dangerous. Because I think that if you share it with the wrong person, and you might not even know if it's the wrong person or not, like, they're going to put their judgment of whatever that is on top of it, on top of you, because maybe for them it failed in the past, or maybe when they tried that it didn't work for them. So I think that sometimes, like, sharing what it is that you want to do or what is it that you're working on can be very, very dangerous, because if you are the type of person that you take feedback to heart and it's going to mess with you, don't share it. Like, you can share once you're there, but I think you got to be careful with sharing what is it you're working on, because you just don't know. So what do you think, Matt, would be a great way to decide on who you do or you don't share with? And what are your opinions on that?
My opinions are very strong on that one. Can I share?
Hell yeah. Share, please. This is the good place to share.
If the people that you're intending to share your thoughts, aspirations, or dreams with haven't even been close to where you want to go, don't fucking share it with them, because they will not understand what it is you're trying to work on and why it is important to you. We've all experienced this in the past, and I've had clients in the past who join Carbon Coaching who have wanted to lose weight for a long time, but they are surrounded by a fat family, fat friends, and the intentions of those individuals in their life were never to get healthier. So when said client wanted to make a change for themselves because they wanted a happy, healthier, stronger life, as soon as they voiced it to their friends and family, they didn't fucking understand. They almost saw it as a betrayal because they were never able to make the change for themselves. Like, this is fucking delusional. It's like, we've heard this term time and time again. You wouldn't take financial advice off of a broke person. You wouldn't take weight loss advice from somebody who's overweight, etc., etc., etc. I'm sure that there's probably a great military analogy in there as well, which I would butcher if I tried to make anything up. I'll let you think about that one and come back to me on it. But the truth is, if the people that you're intending to share this great idea or aspiration or intention with haven't been there, they aren't really going to understand. And 9 times out of 10, they will ask questions of doubt. Now, we might all have that one friend that no matter what is ride or die and will support you no matter what, and probably supported you through some dumb shit you probably should not have done.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Good for you if you've got that individual. So my real answer to this question is that the people that you share these deep aspirations with, if they're not in your immediate circle, go and find where those fucking people are, right? Go and find people who are either working on a similar goal, similar target. Those are going to be the people you want to have the conversation with, because they'll understand and they'll actually support you through that journey. I had it in the past where I had a client who was on her weight. This was a tough one for me. I was working with a husband and wife, and the wife had reached out and she wanted to lose some weight after having their kid. She didn't feel good in her body anymore. She really wanted to get back to her pre-pregnancy physique. And we started working together. Now, as we're working together, now I don't know firstly if she'd actually discussed this with her husband, but in our time working together, she had to withdraw from the program because her husband no longer supported her on working on her physical health, which sounds fucking delusional, which it is. It's fucking stupid. And actually, it says more things about the insecurity of the male in that partnership than anything else. But the truth was that he wasn't doing anything to look after his own health. He wasn't doing anything to be in better shape, to be healthy, be stronger, just be fitter, given the fact that they've just had a kid. And surely that should be fucking important if you've got a child to have good health. But because she was trying to make a change and he wasn't able to, he didn't see the importance of it for her. Now, the question could be, did they have good communication as a couple? I'll never fucking know, but it doesn't really sound like it. Because of this, she withdrew from the program. She didn't make any steps towards having the body that she really wanted to gain back her self-confidence because he stopped her from doing it, or because he put his thoughts on her, his judgment, his doubt, pushing across his insecurities. And we all have people in our life that are like this: friends, family, significant other, somebody who's close to us that can't see why it's important to us to make a change. Those are the people you should not be sharing your shit with. That's it.
And who do you think is more responsible in that scenario? So you just give me a scenario where she stopped working out. She was in your program and she stopped working out. And it was largely due to the fact that her husband stopped supporting her. Who do you think was more responsible here, or is it equal? Because I have my opinion.
My opinion is it's twofold. And firstly, it's bad communication. Now, I don't know the inner workings of that partnership, but if the lady in this situation didn't feel confident enough to explain to her partner why this was really important for her, and maybe she was worried for whatever reason that I don't know her and I don't want to speculate on, then so be it. She didn't feel confident enough to explain why this was so important to her for her physical and mental well-being. Secondly, the guy's a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah. So I think that every year you should leave friends behind. I think every year you should do an inventory of your life and think about who doesn't get to come into the new year with you, right? Because everybody has all these New Year's resolutions, right? Think about it as like New Year transition of like you're going into New Year. What are you leaving behind? And I think that also applies to even some family. And I know people are going to have a hard time hearing this, but that applies to family too. I think that the responsibility does come down on both of them, especially if he's a douchebag. But I also think that probably a lot of it had to do with the way that she was raised. A lot of it had to do with the way that her mother and her father probably gave her some love. And again, I don't know. I'm speculating, of course, right? And this is just a separate imaginary scenario at this point. But I think that when you have that upbringing and you don't separate from it as a younger child, and you allow that person to still hurt you in your later years, you're not doing them any favors. And there's forgiveness in that and understanding that like that's just the way that they were raised, so they pass it off to you. But you can limit your exposure to family. You can limit your exposure to certain people that you don't want in your circle anymore. And eventually, if it's family, maybe they'll just invite you a little bit around them a little bit less and less. And if it's friends that used to be friends, eventually guess what? They'll get the hint and they'll move on. And you're actually doing them a favor because they're gonna find somebody to replace you that actually does want to do the BS things that you do. Because if it's not you anymore, if you're not living that type of life, if it doesn't align with your values, the longer you keep them around, the less likely you are to start making different types of decisions. And if you are working on yourself, if you want to like start a business or start working out or start eating healthy, you're not going to do it if you keep hanging around with the people that freaking eat McDonald's every other day or make fun of people that work out or have a 9 to 5 and they feel like life is miserable and that's just the way life is. Like you can't change from one mindset to another if you're still surrounded by people that are thinking that way. At least it's very hard. It's definitely doable, but it's going to be much harder. Do you agree?
100%. I actually had this happen to me. And it's funny that we speak about it like, hey, you have to make the change. You have to make the decision to leave those people behind. I actually had it the other way around. You see, 6 years ago when I stopped drinking, I was managing hotels, bars, and clubs across London and New York. And I decided to go sober. And when I stopped drinking, all of my friends made that decision for me. They just stopped inviting me out because they used to say, oh, well, Matt doesn't drink anymore. He won't want to go out. Matt doesn't drink anymore. He won't be any fun. So for all those motherfuckers, thanks very much.
They made it simple. And I love that. And honestly, like, it's so much easier than you think. Like I can think back and write down a list of like 20 or 30 people that I used to talk to, maybe not on a daily basis, but that I used to have in my life. And when I look at it now, that circle is a lot smaller, not because I deleted numbers, not because I blocked them, just because I stopped interacting with them. I stopped doing the things that had me being around them, right? The drinking, the partying, whatever. And honestly, like it's not that hard. You just have to understand that you don't have to pick up every time they call you. You don't have to reply to every message. Eventually distancing yourself by you, maybe sharing a little bit of what you're doing, right? So maybe this is a good way of sharing, right? Because we talked about that earlier. So maybe sharing a little bit of what you're doing so people can be like, oh, well, either they want you to do really well or they don't want to be around you because you're no fun anymore. Whatever. Either way, screw them. If they don't want to be around you, it doesn't matter, right? But maybe this is a good way of sharing so you can start to let people know that like you're in a different place, right? Interesting.
Setting your boundaries.
Yeah.
It's definitely setting your boundaries. And if that means telling people a little bit because they are asking and they're bothering you for that information, then so be it, right? Like we're not trying to do things completely in secret, but it means in the same breath, draw the fucking boundaries. Like if there are things that you are constantly finding yourself doing because you are a yes person and that ain't moving you forwards, then you need to back away from those things. Like if there is whatever it might look like in your week, you know what you should be doing for your own physical and mental well-being. Like bottom line, we should be getting out the house. We should be moving the body. We should be exercising. We should be not eating like a fucking child, etc., etc. Like these are the basics, guys. And I understand that's hard for some people to grasp because some people have been eating like fucking children since they were a fucking child. These are small little things, but you need to set your boundary because if the individuals that you normally spend your time with don't do any of that stuff, none of the good stuff, you're going to consistently do their stuff. Nothing changes.
Damn. Ooh, I love that. I want to add to that. I think that setting boundaries is important, but if you're in a place where you have a very hard time with that, what I suggest, and Matt can either disagree or agree, and I would love to hear her perspective on this, is use your systems to do that for you. So maybe it is blocking people. Maybe it is putting your gym time on your calendar. Maybe it is setting your alarm to ring very, very loud in the mornings and like putting yourself on autopilot. So if you have a hard time with boundaries, make sure that everything's on your calendar. Make sure that you're in bed at a certain time and your phone is on sleep mode. So that way, like your boundaries are being set for you, because that is boundary setting. But it's just, I believe that if you use systems in the beginning, because maybe that willpower isn't there yet, eventually you'll start to see that it's paying off. Eventually you'll start to see that, like, okay, having a boundary that I've set because of a system that I put in place to make sure that my phone goes on sleep mode at a certain time and I'm in bed at a certain time and my alarm wakes me up. I have a Pavlov watch, like an actual like shock clock. It'll shock me up. I know. I love it. You would love it too. I have to get up out of bed and I have to do 10 jumping jacks or side straddle hops if you're in the military to stop it from shocking me again. And the reason why I bought it is because I thought for the longest that it was a gimmick. I've changed my mind on it because I think that it's only a gimmick if you don't use it. Everything can be a gimmick if you don't use it. But I use it and it wakes me up every morning at the same time. And I get up out of bed and I do my jumping jacks and then I'm not getting back into bed. It's a very useful tool for me. It's a system because unfortunately, sometimes my willpower, my boundaries of what time I'm going to get up, they don't work always in the morning. So that's my 2 cents of using technology and systems to set some boundaries for you.
That's
what are your thoughts on that?
I think I need to get that and send it to a couple of my clients. I'll be honest, like that sounds fucking cool.
That's funny that you say that. I want to bring up the clients now because so unfortunately for everybody listening live, we had some technical difficulties, but I have on my phone right here a bunch of comments from everybody watching live. So we have a bunch of people watching on my Facebook group. I'm going to ask some of the questions that they talked about because actually Steven and Savannah both have the shock clock, the Pavlov. And as soon as this episode is recorded, I'm going to send it to you guys so you guys can listen to it first. But let me go ahead and read some of the questions that they asked here. Let me see. All right, so here's a question from Savannah. How did you change your algorithm on social media to limit the BS and start getting what you need to see? For the longest, I'm guessing she gets a lot of negative stuff on social media because of who she was, but now she's changing her mindset. Do you have any tips and tricks on what she can do to change her algorithm on social media to make sure that she starts seeing the things that actually motivate her and inspire her?
100%. So this is really common. And it's funny because my algorithm feeds me bullshit. And the reason why my algorithm feeds me bullshit is because I then go in and I take those videos and then I make my own videos calling out their bullshit. But I've deliberately done that. So hopefully this will work for you to change that around.
I think they can hear you now if I put the microphone to their head. So
what's going on, Savannah? I hope you're good. I hope you can hear me. And thank you so much for the question. So when we're looking at changing our algorithm, I'm not a social media expert. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not. However, the way that it works is that it will feed you what you interact with the most. And you might be thinking, hey, well, I'm not liking these videos. I'm not commenting on these videos, but it's also looking at how long you're spending watching it. You know, if it's 2 to 3 seconds of a video, which you want to be getting away from some bullshit information from some bullshit individual, it will process that as you found that interesting and it will then try and send you more of it. So in response, my solution is keep watching more of JP's reels. Just watch those day and day, like again and again, because that's all you'll see. But
Listen, man, they send me your videos all the time.
in reality, find the positive influences, things that inspire you or that you actually find interesting. Now, everybody's working on a different set of goals. Everybody's got different things that they find interesting. For me, it's cool new recipes. It's some kind of crazy ass workouts because I love getting inspired by that. And then there's a ton of videos of cats doing really weird shit, right? Because that puts a smile on my face. And because I spend time watching those on social media and I might drop a like on it or I might drop a comment, the algorithm will spit me more of that stuff. So find whichever positive influences are working for you that you really resonate with and just watch a few more of those accounts, like a few more of those accounts, comment on a few more of those posts, and it will over time regenerate itself to send you more of that positivity into your life. I hope that helps.
I'm sure it did, and hopefully she can hear it. I tried to figure out a way for them to hear it, so hopefully they can hear it. But I like that, man. I think that it applies everywhere in life, right? That principle of liking and commenting, like start applying that to people. I think that Matt's advice is absolutely awesome, but I also think that it can apply to people too, right? Like if you don't want to be surrounded by negative people, stop liking them and stop commenting them, stop talking to them, stop replying to them. Yeah, so I like that. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Let's see. I have to scroll through here. All right, I don't think they can hear you, so I don't think it worked. But all right, well, listen, it was my first time trying it. Honestly, I'm going to talk about the technical difficulties because I think that people have this idea that everything is perfect. They listen to the Joe Rogan podcast or the Jocko podcast or all these different podcasts, and they think that everything is freaking perfect, right? No, they just have an entire team of people doing it. This is a one-man show, people. So I tried to set it up and it didn't work. But again, it wasn't failure. It was just a learning experience. And maybe next time for sure, it'll be a lot better. And we even tried to test it beforehand. But I think the example of what we were talking about earlier of understanding that execution is the most important part. We still execute it. We're still here. You're still asking questions. We're going to figure out how to do it. Actually, it sounds like Savannah was able to hear you because she said that she's guilty of that, of liking stuff and commenting on stuff that she doesn't want to see anymore. So I think that honestly, a lesson that I took from today is that execution will still beat procrastination any day, right? And honestly, I'm okay sacrificing my image or my reputation on being technical savvy or whatever on the fact that we can still deliver the podcast, we can still record it. I think that means more to me. So like, I want you guys to think about, and Matt, feel free to chime in here in a second, but I want you guys to think about this in your life when something doesn't go as planned and something throws a wrench in your day. Maybe it's raining, you were going to go for a run. Maybe your kid got suspended from school and now you have to go pick them up. Maybe like they're having a party at the office and they're bringing all this food. Like you have to make the decision. Like, do you give into that? Do you change courses or do you still make the decision to have the plan that you had, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Matt?
The whole point and the whole title of this podcast episode is cut the bullshit. Like, and you are deciding which bullshit you're letting into your life on a day-to-day basis. Like you're allowing some description of bullshit to knock you off track from doing what you know you should be doing. Like it's when we say it out loud, guys, it's common fucking sense. Like we're not trying to tell you anything that is groundbreaking. It ain't rocket science. It's choices and it's behaviors. And if you want to cut the bullshit, it starts with you cutting out your own bullshit first and stop trying to push that onto other people and using the pity card. I fucking hate the pity card. Like life's so tough, life's so hard. La, 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 la. If you guys have traveled around the world and you've gone to other like countries and you see people who are really living in really tough situations and places, like life really ain't that hard for a lot of us. And yes, we all have our demons, we all have our struggles. Some of us have traumas, like much that is deep to that individual. And I don't think that there's any measure to determine whose trauma is more trauma-y than somebody else's. Like we all have our own shit that we work through. But at the end of the day, we need to cut our own bullshit first instead of saying that it's everybody else's bullshit, which has us where we are. Like it starts with you. It starts with all of us. Like it's actually a perfect example that we've had some technical difficulties getting the live stream. Like we could be frustrated. We could be super pissed off. But at the end of the day, you and I got to do something that we've wanted to do and deliver a message. And that's because we just took action and we just did it anyhow.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel good, man. Number one, it's great seeing you, and number two, like I love conversating with you, and it's always reinvigorating, man. And I'll tell you why. And I'm sure you agree. I hope you agree. But I think that when you start on a journey of whether it's starting a business or working out, you are going to leave some of those people behind because you've been able to, right? So we start leaving our old friends behind. There's a bit of a lonely place in between, right? So like starting a business, there's that bit of a lonely place in between. And then you start to find someone like you who's very much like me. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a good place. There's good people here. I found a friend, right? So like remember that applies everywhere in life. Like if you start to decide that you want to leave that 9 to 5 and you want to open up your own business, like people there are not going to be supportive of that. They're all doing what you're trying to leave, right? So like you need to step out of that, and there's a bit of a lonely place. What do you do during that lonely place, Matt? One of the questions that Savannah asked is how did you go about changing your mindset? And I think I'm going to rephrase the question and add a little bit to it. But like, what do you do when you're in that lonely place from when you start and your whole family doesn't support you, and maybe you don't have any friends that actually work out, and you're in this lonely place between starting and like being like a little bit more on that path already, right? Like, what are your thoughts on shifting the mindset?
There is no easy quick fix, guys. Like, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. Like, I work on that every single day in, day out. You know, going from having a great, massive, rock star social life back in my days of managing bars and clubs and having infinite people around me, being able to walk into any venue in London worth going to, not have to look at the price of a drink. Things were just paid for me, never wait in a queue. Like that social status and all of that shit that I thought was important once upon a time. To
Mm-hmm.
going to what I do now, there was a lot of loneliness. It was a massive change. It was a massive different understanding of what my life was going to be. And honestly, I had no fucking idea, but I knew I needed to make a change. And that was the first thing. And when you know that it's important for you to do this, yes, the loneliness is going to be there. It is. I won't lie to you and tell you it's not, but you're doing it for a reason. So you are going to have to ride it out. You are going to have to keep showing up for yourself. And you are going to have to remember that if you step out of the ring, like if you quit, exactly where you're going to end back up again. Like, guys, I've been doing this for a good amount of time, and I still have days that I would consider lonely. And the truth is that loneliness comes because the people that I would potentially go and spend my time with are the people that still participate in all of the shit that I've come so far away from. And I would actually rather embrace my own loneliness with clarity of mind and dedication to what I do now instead of just going to be around people that are going to bring me back down again. That's the truth.
Do you see a lot of value in using your past story to be the reason why you're going to succeed? And let me elaborate on that. You had a very different life before this where you were much involved in a lot of stuff that people would consider to be cool, to be of high status, to have made it, right? Do you think that that chapter of your life, being what it is, not adding to it, not taking away from it, do you think it helped you get to where you are now, or do you think that it was a hindrance? Like if you could go back, would you change something, or do you think that that gave you value overall? If I'm asking a question right here, I think I turned it around, but I think you get it.
I got you, man. I wouldn't change a damn thing. You know, I actually had a really interesting interaction in the gym that I train at just down the road. And I was speaking to one of the ladies who works there. She's a PT. And she asked me out of the blue, because I say hi to the guys in the gym all the time there, right? They're nice enough to let me shoot my content in there. So I'm friends with them. And I said to her that she approached me rather. And she said, "Oh, you know Nikki." I was like, "Nikki who?" I knew exactly because that name Nikki like sent electricity through my body, right? I was like, "Nikki who?" I'm going to cut a long story short here. Nikki is the partner that I had back when I turned sober. She was the reason why I turned sober after a drink and drug fueled argument that resulted in me getting arrested. She was the reason why I turned sober. And it's quite funny now because we look down the line 6 years later and I said, yeah, like I do know Nikki. She was like, oh, I work with her. She's one of my clients and she's been really worried about coming and training in this gym in case she runs into you. Because I've told her how well you're doing now and everything that's going on in your life. Like I've told her all these things. And I said to her, oh, really? She was like, oh, what would you do if she was here? This is the answer I gave her. I would look her dead in the eyes and I would shake her hand and say thank you. Because without all of that, without what was possibly the hardest time in my life, back then at least, I wouldn't have had the ammunition that I needed to make this change and be where I am now. Like our past doesn't fucking define us. You get to choose. Like life is 10% what happened to you and 90% what the fuck you're going to do about it. That's the truth, guys. Mm-hmm. And those actions, those things that I did and those experiences that I had were the stepping stone to every single thing that I did since then. And everybody listening right now, think of that one moment. Think of that, whatever world of shit. We've all got one that probably is still in the back of your head. Like it's still there, like weighing over you. Is that going to be who you define yourself as? Or are you going to use that to make the change and not be that person anymore? Like that's all it comes down to.
Oh, man. That's a lot, man.
I know.
It's a lot, dude. You made me think about some stuff, man. You made me want to call some people and say sorry and say thank you. And I agree with you. I don't think that the past is something that we should run away from. I think that the more experiences we had, the more reference points we have of what we can do differently in the future. Because if you've never experienced it, if you were never in a world like that, and now where you're at, you were possibly tempted with that stuff, you might go down the wrong path, not because of a weak mind, but you just never experienced it before. And you have all these reference points of why it wasn't what you wanted and why it didn't align with you. Now, of course, there's the argument of, well, that's not where you're at now, so you wouldn't. But honestly, I believe that where I'm at in my life, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me going through all the things that I went through. I wouldn't be able to coach my clients, my veterans, about what it is that they can do to change their mindset and their perspective and start taking ownership over their transition if I didn't make the mistakes that I made. Because those are the mistakes that I see them making, right? So like when I got out, one of the biggest mistakes is that I put the responsibility on everybody else for me to come into society and like adapt. And I kept thinking like, well, why is nobody helping me? Why is it that the VA isn't doing this for me? Why is it that I can't get a job? Why is it? And it was everybody besides me. And what did I do? I ended up moving in with my girlfriend at the time. And I thought, well, I guess I have to get married. I guess I have to move in together. All these things that I thought I had to do because I thought that I had to follow a blueprint. There's no fucking blueprint. You get to make up your map as you go along, really. But honestly, everything that is on that path for you, you get to decide how you respond to it. So if I hadn't made all those mistakes that I made in the past, if I hadn't battled with alcohol, if I hadn't gone through severe depression, if I hadn't contemplated suicide when I was a lot younger, I wouldn't be able to go through what I'm going through right now. And you know what I'm going through right now, and a lot of other people do too. But the only reason why I have the metal in me, the only reason why I can put up with this right now, even though it's very hard at times, there was a situation today. Even when it's hard like that, it's because I have all these reference points of me going through harder shit. And now, not only do I understand that I went through harder shit, but now, like you, Matt, I put myself through intentional hardships. I jump in an ice barrel every morning, not because I enjoy it, but because it's freaking hard and it wakes me up. And I tell myself, if I can do that, then I can do anything for the day. And it lowers my anxiety. There's a lot of benefits about it. But anyway, it's intentional hardships, right? And I think that is something that we need to do more of.
I'm with you
man,
on.
I don't know, man.
I'm
Go
with.
for it.
I'm with you on that one. I think a phrase that really resonates with me is that we don't grow from a place of comfort. Like, it's very easy to be comfortable. And the trouble is that the people that are the most comfortable, they're the same ones that have bullshit excuses for everything that's going wrong in the world. They complain about the shit that's on the media. They complain about what's going on in everything. Everything else it's not their fault, right? It's very easy to stay comfortable and complain about how everybody else's wrongdoing is wrongdoing you. It is. You're probably that person right now listening to this who's probably in the position to make a change. But every time we do something that makes us uncomfortable, we take a step forwards. And every time that we do that, we put another nail in the coffin of being that old version of ourselves. You see, every time you do something that is a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, you effectively prove to yourself that you can do something different, right? First time you go to the gym, pretty fucking uncomfortable. I'm sure some of your clients would say that it's still uncomfortable because the exercises hurt and, X, Y, and Z. And that's a good place to be. That's a good uncomfortable. But whatever we do is going to be uncomfortable when it's a change and when it's for our betterment. Like, that's growth. I had the same conversation with my nutritionist today when we were speaking. When I said already, she was feeling overwhelmed, all of these things going on, like taking on new clients, doing corporate events. She was like, I've let things slip in my calendar and it's not like me. And I said to her, Laura, chill the fuck out. She was like, what do you mean? I said, it means that you're growing. This is how we get better at what we do. In everything.
Yeah. Oh, on that note, man, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up because honestly, I love that. You dropped some pretty big bombs. The last two were pretty big ones. And I can't wait for everyone to be able to hear this. And I want to make sure that I just read everything that people are posting in my coaching program in the Savage Squad. I'm going to go ahead and say that if you guys have any more questions as you're listening to the live, because I know you can't hear him live right now, go ahead, type them in the comments as I say my farewell here with Matt. And if you guys have anything, I will go ahead and ask before we sign off. But I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this. So I can't wait to share this with you guys. And to everybody listening to the podcast, this was an amazing conversation. I knew it would be, but like I got goosebumps at certain points. And I want to encourage you guys that if you guys feel some type of way, if you feel encouraged and you feel hyped up right now, motivated, whatever, like do something about it. Like, don't just sit with it, like do something about it. Go and drive to that gym and join like today and freaking work out. Pick yourself up a pair of shorts at the freaking Walmart, whatever. Like drive home, decide to meal prep for the first time. Like you don't know how to do it, figure it the fuck out. Like do something with this motivation. Like do not let these words go to waste. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Yeah. We all started in exactly the same place. All of us. Every single one of us. Like you and I, we present in a certain way, but we're real fucking people. We're just human beings, like doing our thing, getting it wrong on a day-to-day basis and learning from it. We ain't any different to any of the guys and girls that you work with, that I work with, that are in your community, that listen to your podcast. The truth is, we just learn every time that something doesn't go completely right. We make changes and we move forwards. Because going backwards isn't a fucking option.
Thank you for your time. That is going to be it.